Oregon's quarterback commit flipped to USC. Makes me excited.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. This is episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Jonas Williams flips from Oregon to USC. I have many thoughts there. George Silva transfers out. More thoughts there. And I'm finally getting to discuss that beautiful spectacle in Madison, Wisconsin on Saturday. Oh, happy day. Happy day. Okay, so Jonas Williams had been committed to Oregon for a while, and he has now officially flipped to USC. Four-star quarterback in the class of 2026. Wish the kid nothing but the best, as always. And this is not me getting excited because, well, I just don't think Williams is any good. He was never again. Nope, talented kid. Talked about him when he committed here on the show. Saw the potential right away, and you went, yeah, that guy can throw it. He can really move. Plenty of upside there. But my everydayers know where I'm going with this. Oregon is one of two teams in the running for five-star number one overall quarterback Jared Curtis. Now, they have also been in conversations, according to various reports, with Ryder Lyons, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the class of 2026, who is a mission kid, meaning that in 2026, he won't be on Oregon's roster because he'll be serving, I believe, a one-year mission. He might do two. I've heard back and forth on that, but I think he wants to do a one-year mission, whereas most guys like Gatlin Bear end up doing two. So the hunt for Jared Curtis is on, and this is reportedly going to go down here within the next couple of weeks. Now, that's kind of surprising because a guy of this caliber, of this profile, he's got a visit lined up to Oregon here early in the month of March. He's going to take one to Georgia as well. It is Oregon, it is Georgia, and it is nobody else right now. I'm sure other schools are going to try and contact him, get their hat in the ring, and see if they can get on his radar. But it's Oregon and Georgia here. And the reason I'm so excited about this prospect is he is a Josh Allen. He looks like Josh Allen to me. That is who I see. If you look at him through Oregon-colored glasses, you see a lot of Justin Herbert in there. But he's a number one quarterback, at least that I have seen. It depends on which service you look at, but he's a number one quarterback for a reason. But this is not a recruitment that is expected to drag on out into the summer. And I've talked about a lot of quarterbacks on this show, of course, over the last couple of years. Dante Moore's recruitment went on over the summer. Nico Iamaleava, someone Oregon was after. Austin Novosad, of course, flipped to Oregon when Dante Moore flipped away from Oregon, signing with UCLA coming out of high school. All of that stuff took place over the summer. And for a kid this high profile to be expected to make a commitment early on tells me one of two things is in play. Number one, he wants to get it out of the way and enjoy his, final summer before his senior year, which will probably be his final summer because I imagine he would enroll early and, be there for spring football with either Oregon or Georgia going into next year. So maybe he wants to get that out of the way, focus on his final year of high school and not have the college decision weighing over his head. Or he's going to commit early and use that to try and, juice up some offers, interest, and intrigue from either the other school, whichever one he would commit to, or other schools across the country to get more visits or get a bigger NIL offer or what have you. That's the way that it reads to me. So, for a guy because remember, last summer, DeCorian Moore, number one wide receiver coming into class of 2025 for Oregon, big time player, obviously. Committed in July. It was, I think, on the 4th of July when he had his announcement. We were waiting. he had the Instagram live, and I think there was a technical issue and a delay or whatnot. I was at a 4th of July party with my parents, and like I just wasn't there, and they're like, "Well, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm waiting for Decory and Moore to commit. Either way, I gotta record. I gotta react when it happens." But it doesn't seem right now like that's the plan, because that's official visit season is all over the summer. But Curtis might not get that far. So this is a big time recruitment here. And, everything that I've seen and read and heard as well is this is Oregon and Georgia. Is Dan and Kirby, mentor, mentee. And I tell you what, wouldn't be a bad look recruiting-wise for Oregon to land the number 1 wide receiver in the class of 2025 and then the number 1 quarterback in the class of 2026. That wouldn't be bad. That would not be bad. But this would just, I think, further solidify the reality that Oregon is not needing to be as portal-heavy at quarterback as they have been in Dan Lanning's first few years. I know Dante Moore technically transferred in. I really don't view him as a quote-unquote transfer quarterback, right? I know he transferred to Oregon, definitionally, yes. But he was recruited to Oregon out of high school. He was committed there until his offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham, left to go to Arizona State. If that had not happened, he would have stuck with Oregon, 100%. And he still probably, by the way, wouldn't have been starting until this upcoming season. He hasn't officially been named the starter, but it's February, so I don't expect that to be a looming announcement from Dan Lanning and company before spring practice actually happens and such. But I just think that the caliber of guys Oregon is going out and getting, they're just setting up to stack talent at this room. They've got Dante Moore in the room, Novosad's in there, Achilles Smith Jr. in the class of 25. They had JKS for a moment, but as I discussed at the time, that was never really something Oregon was going to be seriously in play for or seriously pursuing. And I think it kind of surprised the staff that he committed because he was always supposed to go to Cal. But you've got Luke Moga in the room, and they just keep bringing in these high-profile guys. And, Ty Thompson right now is the highest-rated Oregon quarterback recruit ever. And so, yeah, that lingers in the back of your mind of, would they ever bring in a portal kid to, keep one of these guys down on the depth chart one day? Sure. It's always a possibility. You don't know who's going to become available. You don't know what he's going to look like, once he gets going against college defenses and such. But Curtis is a mega talent. And I would very much love for him to one day be an Oregon Duck. So this is easily the biggest recruiting story to me. They're swinging big after some offensive linemen. I might talk about that more in tomorrow's show, but leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you think. And, there's always Chris Henry Jr. at Ohio State, number 1 wide receiver who they're trying to flip as well. But Oregon had a player transfer out. That doesn't happen very often, but it did happen. And I have a couple of thoughts, because when do I not? I also have thoughts on FanDuel. Not just that they're bringing you this episode, but when the NBA action is just getting started, you can always get in. You can always get in with FanDuel. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's number 1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay, and boom, goes the dynamite. Plus, if you want to bet college football, yeah, you can do that right here on this very show, on FanDuel, which you heard about because of this very show. You can bet Oregon's win total, national title odds, whatever you want. It's all over there right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you think I sound a little bit off today, it was worse 2 days ago. It was way worse. Oh, man. I mean, like way worse. Talking above loud whisper was a challenge. But we're getting back. We're getting back. We're getting there. But I was battling that in Disney World, so there are worse places to be a little under the weather here. So George Silva transferred out of Oregon's offensive line room, and a couple of thoughts there. Silva was going into his third year. He had an extra season of eligibility because of the Diego Pavia rule surrounding junior college guys that, essentially said, hey, if you were out of eligibility because you had JUCO years, you can get one more year for this season. Basically a blanket waiver, and Silva is eligible, so he's in the portal, and he can go in the portal now when it's not in the window because he's a graduate transfer. They can go into the portal at any time. Non-grad transfers can only go in during the windows, but you can also exit the portal at any point in time. So I thought about this with a couple of different angles. First of all, Dan Lanning still has a track record of losing zero starters to the transfer portal. Every program has guys go in and out, but you've got programs like Georgia that have lost starters. Their starting quarterback just decided, I'm going to Miami. Now, yeah, his girlfriend's down there, but he wants to go to the NFL. Could have played another year at Georgia. I'm going to just go over here to Miami. And that's one of the best programs run by one of the best coaches in all of college football. You could argue the best program and the best coach. I mean, the last 4 years, Kirby Smart has, two national championships and 2 SEC championships? Pretty good. He's pretty good. Even that guy's lost a starter. So whenever you hear discussion about, culture at Oregon, why don't you ask whoever is throwing that at you, if you come across such an individual, whether online or in person, hey, how many other major programs haven't lost a starter to the transfer portal yet? George Silva was not going to be a starter. He would have been on the 2 deep, I would think. But was he going to see significant playing time? Not likely, barring a string of injuries to the offensive line. But, he was the number 1 JUCO offensive tackle in the 23 cycle. And Sione Laulea was the number 1 JUCO corner in that cycle. Now, I think Laulea is kind of a sneaky pick to be a starting corner for the Ducks this year. He's 6'3", got great length, really athletic, made that interception when the second unit defense was in against Illinois earlier this year. I think he's got a lot of potential. I don't know how he is defending the run because we haven't really seen that, and that's a non-zero part of playing any defensive back position, of course, especially when you have 5 on the field. Your DBs have got to be able to tackle. So I wonder how that goes down. But, those were really highly regarded JUCO prospects, and this is part of the reason, I talked about this with Ryan Winter earlier this week, that I have my expectations pretty tampered for Malik Benson, the Florida State transfer. Hasn't found his footing at either Power 4 school. Super highly rated JUCO guy. But again, these were the top players at their position from the JUCO ranks in Silva and Laulea. They're yet to see the field in a meaningful capacity for the Ducks in their careers. And Silva is, of course, done now as a Duck. But, Lanning's going into his 4th year and still 0 starters have transferred up. There have been some surprise transfers. Keith Brown was probably one of the more surprising ones. I thought he was going to be poised for a big leap, but turns out just didn't quite work out for him. He went to Louisville, then went up to Washington State the year after that, after not playing much at Louisville. But it's a non-zero factor. Yes, NIL is something that factors into that as well. Oregon's NIL coffers, extremely well stocked. And that was a big focus or a big point of discussion for Ohio State. Joel Klatt talked about it ad nauseum throughout the year, about how Ohio State took their NIL and invested it in keeping their players from both going to the NFL draft and from leaving to the transfer portal. Well, Oregon's had the similar sort of success over the last couple of years, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. So I like where Oregon's offensive line depth is at without Silva, who, again, at best was probably going to be a backup tackle going into this year. But, Oregon brought in 3 offensive tackles in this 2025 class. Now, Lanning has spoken in the past that typically guys in the trenches take 2 to 3 years to be, fully formed and fully ready. But Zaire Addison, Zach Steskowski, and Douglas Utu, all pretty highly rated 4-star recruits coming out of high school this year. I know Zaire Addison's given an interview or two where he says he wants to come in and try to start. That's going to be pretty tough for a couple of reasons. Number one, Alex Harkey, transfer from Texas State, is certainly on paper more beatable positionally than, in a position battle than Isaiah World on the other side, who I believe, according to 24/7, is the top player in the transfer portal this cycle that changed teams, and Oregon's got him, and he grades as a 5-star transfer. That guy's probably going to be an NFL draft selection, so have a hard time seeing him getting beat out. But it's not as if Harkey was some slouch over at Texas State. He was really good. That just seems like the more open position. But the other difficulty that any of these guys will have is Jonas Williams is also into the fold, and he's been on campus for a couple of years now, and he was on the field last year. He caught a touchdown. Dylan Gabriel's record-breaking touchdown for his career touchdown record in all of college football. He caught that one. Why? Because he is the jumbo guy, like Josh Connerly was in his freshman season. Connerly did it as a true freshman, of course, and Jonas, I believe, was a redshirt freshman this past year. But that position group, I think, is sneakily stacked. Very, very sneakily, because you've got the 2 transfers, but then you've got the 3 incoming true freshmen. All right, well, those are maybe developmental guys. Well, then you've got Wilson, who the staff at least likes if he was playing significantly last year. You've got Fox Crater, who was the next highest rated offensive tackle after Shaq McCroy, who transferred out last year from that 2024 class. And then you've got Trent Ferguson, who will be going into his 3rd season. Not a super highly rated recruit, but was a developmental guy. Well, here's his 3rd year. What's the development look like? We don't really know. We won't know until guys can see him at spring football, of course. But I think this offensive tackle position, I certainly expect there to be an adjustment. I don't know that I can hold these guys to the expectation that they're as good as Connerly and Cornelius just were, who were both in their 2nd season starting with the offensive line. But I think the depth is pretty solid. And the fact that Wilson has seen real meaningful game action and he might be your 3rd offensive tackle, I feel pretty good about that. So I hope Silva finds a home where, he can showcase what he's able to do on the field. But I think somewhat quietly in the minds of some Oregon fans, this offensive tackle position, it has been really, really well recruited over the last couple cycles, and I think they will be totally fine there now and in the future as well once Harkey and World move on from Oregon. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, as always. I have so many thoughts from Saturday. Oh, man. Can't wait. Was getting ahead on some shows, so, Monday and Tuesday, recorded those middle of last week. So obviously I can't talk about a basketball game I hadn't seen, but I was in line for Tron at the Magic Kingdom in Disney World, which is awesome, by the way. Did that 4 times on the trip, and it was great every time. And I watched Jackson Shellstad break the hearts of 16,000 fans in Madison. First, this episode brought to you by Prize Picks. March basketball is literally about to start. There's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. So, if you're watching an NBA game and oh boy, Damian Lillard's popping tonight, you take him over. But Giannis is going under, you take him under. If those are both right, boom, you watch the winnings roll in, and it's in your account in as little as 15 minutes. 15 minutes. That's right, 15 minutes. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks. Run your game. Jackson Shellstad's that guy. I love when he's that guy. This was actually Nate Biddle's the reigning Big Ten Player of the Week. He had 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Oregon won their 4th straight over Wisconsin on Saturday. Not 4 straight over the Badgers, but just their 4th straight game after a 5-game losing skid in which we were firing Dana Altman and punting on the season. Well, here we are. Here we are. We're back and better than ever. Off until Saturday when USC comes to town. Then it's a home game against Indiana and a road game at Washington. That's how the regular season ends leading up to the Big Ten tournament. I mean, this has just been such an up and down year. But if Oregon can keep this heater going, boy, I like that momentum into the tournament. But Jackson Shelstad, just the smoothest step back 3 imaginable. It reminded me of in his true freshman season last year at home against Michigan. He hit this 3 from way outside to beat the Wolverines. Now, that Michigan team wasn't actually good, but this Wisconsin team was really good. And the 3 teams that Oregon had beaten going into this game were teams they should have beaten, that you looked at on paper and said, oh, Oregon's favored. They should beat. This team isn't that good. They should win that game. They won those games. They found a way to win at Iowa, despite the officials' best attempts to give that game to the Hawkeyes. They beat Northwestern. They beat Rutgers. And you said, okay, everything's kind of stabilized. But I didn't have high hopes for that Wisconsin game. Wisconsin's good. Wisconsin was the number 11 team in the country. You're playing them in Madison. And they just went in there and erased a 17-point deficit in less than 22 minutes of game time with 1:42 to play. In the first half. Obviously not in the game. That would have been crazy. 1:42 to go in the first half. Oregon trailed by 17 points. And they came back and won on the road. This was awesome. This was awesome. My brother and I were going nuts. Absolutely crazy in line because I just want, once Oregon got down big, I really wasn't stressing about it. Like, they got the stabilizing wins they needed. Like, it's all good. Then they just kept chipping away. They were down 14 with 5 minutes to go. They found a way. Gave up 2 points over that stretch. Scored a bunch. Did the little things. Ratcheted up the effort on defense. Defense wins it for them every time. Every single time. But the offense continues to be pretty darn productive. Bad first half, great second half. That averages out to a decent game on the road. Hostile environment. Found a way. Biddle was brilliant. They had no answer for him inside. If you don't have a big who is, kind of wide and physical, that can push Nate Biddle around because he's a little bit skinnier and he's not, clearing space like Dante was, he can struggle. But if you can't, he's going to kill you. His hook shot is lethal. Oregon had interior paint scoring. That's been a rarity at times. Biddle had 23 and 6. Keyshawn Bartholomew and Jackson Shelstad combined for 27 points and made 5 threes. Bam Tracy had 11 points off the bench. KJ Evans off the bench, 10 points, 9 rebounds, and a block. 9 rebounds for KJ Evans off the bench, including a big one late in the game. He had an offensive rebound and putback when Oregon was making their run to send it to overtime. Now, they got some gifts in this game. Wisconsin was just kicking and throwing the ball. They look like the Oakland A's in Moneyball. The A's are throwing and kicking it all over the field, and it might lead to their elimination. So Oregon forced a turnover, down 3. I thought they botched the review and gave it to Wisconsin, unless they had an angle that I didn't see, but I thought it was off Wisconsin pretty clearly. They gave it to the Badgers, who then inbounded the ball. Guy drops it and kicked it off his leg. And then they inbound to Shelstad, leaps in the air, catches it. He's deep on the left wing, and he just goes pull back, step back, all nylon. And he gave a little Peyton Pritchard at Washington from a few years ago and let the crowd know how he felt about that shot. And then, my favorite part. Okay, no, the shot going in was my favorite part. But an underrated part was after that, Wisconsin plays it out. They had a timeout, decided not to use it. Go down, get a bucket. Not a bad strategy. I kind of like that. You don't let a defense get set, and you don't have to inbound the ball in a pressure spot again. Shelstad was the one defending Wisconsin's player who put up a shot for the win at the buzzer, hit the front of the rim. Then in overtime, it was back and forth, and then Biddle came alive. Oregon made enough free throws, and they got a 77-73 win. This was so awesome. So awesome. Best win, I don't know. Alabama's really good. Really good. They beat another ranked team the other day. I think they beat them by like 10, 15 points or more. Alabama's really good. So that might be the best win of the year. But this was the best road win of the year. True road game. Win your fourth straight. And this did wonders for two things. Number one, the confidence in that locker room has to be back after a 5-game losing skid that they pulled that off. And then number two, did wonders for their seeding. Going into this game, after 3 straight wins, they'd been bumped up from a projected 8 seed to a projected 7 seed, which I felt was appropriate because they beat 3 teams in a row, but they weren't actually that good. None of those are tournament teams, but still, you get credit for winning. They go on the road and beat number 11 Wisconsin. I checked bracketology earlier today. What do you know? Oregon's back up there as a 5 seed. If they end the regular season with 3 straight wins, and again, they play teams in the bottom half of the conference here. 2 of 3 at home. USC, Indiana, and then at Washington. Rivalry games, anything could happen. I have a sneaky suspicion they're going to wind up going 2-1. But if they go 3-0 and pick up one quality win in the Big Ten tournament, they could be looking at a 4 seed. They could be looking at a 4 seed. And that changes the calculus on your first round game dramatically. 12 seeds beat 5s every year, right? We all know those bracket rules. Got to pick a 12. 12 always wins. 12 won last year. 12 has won. It's something like 21 of the last 25 brackets. At least one 12 seed has won. They regularly go 2-2. You flip that to the 13 seed against the 4 seed, it's not the same. It's not even close. There's something about that cutoff line. But this felt out of reach for Oregon a week ago. It's not anymore. So they've been projected as high as a 3 seed at one point this year. 5-game losing skid has seen to the fact that won't happen unless they go in the Big Ten tournament and beat 2 to 3 really good teams, which they could get that opportunity. They'd have to then win those games. But if you go into that Big Ten tournament and beat a Michigan State, Wisconsin again, and one other win, yeah, you could climb up back to a 3 seed. But I think the ceiling here from a seeding standpoint is probably 4, because they're currently sitting at 20-8. But if they end the regular season 22-9, that locks them into, I don't think, any worse than a 6 seed. But if they end the regular season 3-0, that's an if. The stumbles can always arrive. But this win was so huge. Legitimately, I don't think this will happen. But Oregon could probably lose their next 3 games and still make the tournament at 20-11. They have too many good wins for them to get left out. Even if they lose their next 3 games in their first game in the Big Ten tournament, they could be one of those ugly 20-12 teams. And you're like, they beat a bunch of really good teams. Yeah, they have. It's why you play a tough non-conference and why you need to win those games for moments like that. But if Oregon can keep playing the way they're capable here, you go 3-0 down the stretch and one quality win, a 4 seed. 4 seed, that is my current dream. So, all hope was lost, but we're back. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.